Please join me in prayer. Holy Spirit, as you do your work within us and amongst us and the world around us, may we be made ready to live in the kingdom of heaven here and now. Amen. This morning, I'm sure you have detected a theme. We are going to be talking about speaking out, lifting our voices, being salt and light. The speaking up part, for me, I have to acknowledge, as I go through this sermon, I was preparing it, the speaking up part for me is easy. This is like easy mode in my case. I even have a time set aside every week during which, even if you're not excited about what I'm saying, you're generally very polite. And I get to speak up, and I get, for about 15 or 20 minutes, I get to speak up and say things that are on my mind or on my heart. Like there's special time set aside for that. Most people don't have that. Like speaking up as a pastor is expected. It's even invited. Like I was invited to be a guest preacher on April Fool's Day at Grimes Memorial Church, which by the way is awesome. And I invite you all to be there. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It's almost too many good things at once. When there's a Martin Luther King Jr. prayer breakfast, I'm invited to speak and be part of that. When there's a vigil of some kind in the community, I'm invited to speak. It's expected. When I show up someplace and open my mouth, for better or for worse, it is part of our normal, everyday community life in a way that isn't true for most other people. For the rest of you, much of the time, speaking up, especially on like a theological or a moral issue, is risky. There isn't time set aside in our community for you to do that. There isn't like a special bullet point in the bulletin that says, this is where Doug gets to talk, and please listen. So for most of you, it's a riskier thing to speak out. If we want to, we can find plenty of examples in history, in the present, of people who have been threatened or punished or have had retribution against them for speaking out. If you'd like excuses or reasons not to speak out, we can find plenty enough to make us nervous and hesitant to do so. Especially given the case that for those not in my position, there's sort of a hump you have to get over to speak out. Because there isn't time set aside for you. Isaiah, however, is not going to let us get into that. It's going to be Isaiah. He's speaking in Isaiah 58 as a prophet, but also he's speaking toward the prophetic. His audience for this text is all of Israel. Or another way to say it is, his audience for the text is all of the people of God. And so not only is he being prophetic, he is calling upon them, on us, to also be prophetic. It isn't enough to listen. The text begins, shout out, do not hold back. So if we're looking at Isaiah 58 and there's only one person talking, it isn't working. In theory, it is the easiest thing in the world to speak up. In here. Just open your mouth, say something. But we find a lot of ways to avoid saying what we believe, saying what we otherwise know to be true. We use euphemisms to get around the truth of something. Like we say inner city when we mean black. We might say police action when we mean war. For a few years there, we were saying enhanced interrogation techniques when we meant torture. We find euphemisms and we find ways to get around saying what's happened. We find a polite way to say it. Because telling the truth feels like too much. There's a social cost for speaking out. There must be, otherwise everyone would do it. It wouldn't be that big a deal. Everyone would say what they thought and what they believed, and we would just move on. But people feel hesitant to. Myself included, when I don't have time set aside for it, I still feel hesitation. Even when I have time set aside, I feel hesitation to speak out. There's some weight pressing on us, keeping us quiet. Something in us kind of wants to hide, to be looked over, to let things pass us by and not stand up and shout. I've watched this happen in many rooms in the past. Something is said or something happens, and in the back of our minds, many of us think somebody should say something about that. And you watch the facial expression roll through the room of people thinking a thing very hard, but not saying it. Have you seen that facial expression before? It's a little different on different people, but you can tell when someone's thinking something very hard, but they're not saying it out loud. People look into their laps. Time to check the phone, look at the clock, look anywhere but each other, as we all sort of quietly agree, we're just not going to bring that up and we're going to move on. That happens a lot. There's an article I was reading this past week. It's one of those things that just sort of makes its way through your social media feeds, I guess. The article was about looking at the science behind whether people will stand up in the face of like a rising authoritarian regime or totalitarianism or fascism. Like whether people, like the question at the top of the article was, you know, would you stand up to tyranny? Here's the science. Because the thing is, most people don't. It's very rare for like an authoritarian regime to begin rising and then just spontaneously the society stands up and says, no, none of that, you're fired. It usually takes a lot more than that. It usually takes like a war, a genocide, something horrific to galvanize people to resist. And so this article looked at some of the social science that studies this phenomenon of whether people stand up and shout or not when they see something evil going on. And they talk about there being two different ways of thinking, two different logics that keep people from speaking up when they choose not to. The first they call the logic of consequence. And basically this just means that sometimes we sit back and we think, here's the potential benefit of speaking up, here's what I value, what I think is right about the world, and here's the potential cost. And here's what I risk by speaking out. And you take column A and you compare it to column B, and if the risk column is bigger, you don't speak up. And if the benefit or the belief column is stronger, then you do speak up. That's the first sort of logic that governs these interactions. But there's a second one that's more subtle, that they call the logic of appropriateness. And this thinking isn't about like a moral right or wrong. This thinking asks the question, what would a person like me do in a situation like this? What is the appropriate behavior in this situation? Like what would be civil? What would be polite? What is expected? And this is totally divorced from like right and wrong or deeply held beliefs. This is just a sense of, it sort of rises up from our desire to fit in with one another, from our kind of desire to see who doesn't fit and kind of nitpick at them. It's a very natural, it's not something to be proud of, but it's a very natural human thing to do. Is to see people who stand out and kind of, what are they doing over there? And this becomes a sort of a logic, they call a logic of appropriateness. What would a person like me? What should a person like me do in a situation like this? So sometimes people are silent because of the logic of consequence, right? They look at the cost. It's a big risk to speak up. And so they choose not to. For every whistleblower, there are 10,000 people who know the same things and don't stand up and say anything about it. For every person who stands up and speaks, there are 100 more, 1,000 more, who are in the same situation who chose not to. And sometimes that's just because the risk is too great. They believe strongly about something, they want to speak, but they've thought about it, and it's too scary. Something concrete and bad might happen to them if they do, so they don't. And there's not a lot I can say to that. I mean, I wouldn't encourage anyone to take a risk I myself wouldn't take. And I have not taken most risks there are in life. Sometimes you make the calculation, you decide this isn't worth it. Okay, fair enough. I think this is the minority of situations, though. I think much more often what keeps us quiet is the logic of appropriateness. The weight pressing down on us isn't necessarily fear of concrete consequences. The weight pressing down on us is just the desire to fit in and not stand out and get along. To have the approval of the people around us. To behave like the kind of person we are is supposed to behave. It's our desire to fit in and to do what's right, not in a moral sense, but to do what's right in the sense that others who look like us, who share our place in society, will see us and go, that was appropriate. That was the right thing to do. It was polite and civil. You're getting along properly. There's a social scientist named Noam Spencer who does one of those fun experiments that professors of social science do for their intro classes and the first day of class with new students. He takes two students, kind of at random, from the room, asks them to leave, go out in the hallway. He talks to the rest of the students and he says, okay, I want you to avoid interacting with those two people when they come back in. Just avoid interacting with them as much as you can. Don't look at them, don't talk to them, don't respond to them, just pretend like they're not there, okay? And then he goes out in the hall and he says to the two students, okay, your job is to go in there and to get some kind of response from your classmates. Get them to look at you, talk to you, laugh at a joke, whatever. You're just trying to get something from them, okay? That'll be your job. And he tells both groups, if you do this well, you'll get some bonus points on your first quiz. So there you go, a little extra credit. And then the kids come in, and what commences is 10 incredibly uncomfortable minutes as these two people in a new class are desperately trying to get some kind of response from their classmates, and they're being ignored and they're being shunned, and it's just like, I imagine watching this and it being excruciating. And he lets it drag on. I mean, 10 minutes of being ignored in a room is forever. That is a lifetime. And so then the two students sit down and he explains, okay, this was your instructions, these were your instructions, and he asks them what did it feel like. And people say it feels horrible. It felt horrible to ignore these people who were trying to connect with us. The people who were trying to connect, it's like it felt horrible. It was one of the worst experiences I've had. It was just awful to feel that way. And so he asked, why do you think I had you do this? And they're all like, oh, I know why. It's to show us how difficult it is to be an outsider. To show us how hard it is to be someone outside of the group and to be excluded from a group, right? And he goes, no. The purpose of this exercise is to show you how easy it is to get people to behave cruelly just to fit in. Because you spent 10 minutes tormenting fellow students, and not a single one of you said, you know what, stuff your quiz points. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to be mean to these people. You know, I don't need this. Not a single one of you said that. You all went along with it, and it got worse and worse, and uglier and uglier, and you all went along with it just because I asked you. And I didn't tell you how many quiz points. never goes up. His point being that in order to get cruelty out of people, all you need to get is conformity. You don't need to get them to believe that cruelty is right. You don't need to teach them a deep ideology. You just need to get conformity. Hannah Arendt is a Jewish philosopher who's written a lot about the Holocaust, which she lived through and has reflected upon. And one of the things she talks about is that in order to get the German people to accept the Holocaust, to allow the rise of Nazism, all the cruelty and brutality that came with it, in order to make that happen, they didn't have to convince millions of Germans that genocide was okay. They didn't have to do that. All they had to do was convince millions of Germans to be a good German. Fit in, go along with your neighbors, be patriotic, don't ask questions. That was all it took. It didn't take a massive ideological shift for many of these people who were just regular, normal German people. All it took was to get them to conform, to work that logic of appropriateness, to make it inappropriate to question, inappropriate to stand at. And that, for many people at that time, was enough. Of course, this reading from Matthew 5 and Isaiah 58 are placed together in the lectionary for a reason. Going along with we are called to stand up, we are called to shout, lift our voices like a trumpet, do not hold back. We are similarly called to be salt. We are called to be light. And in a lot of ways, this is all violating the logic of appropriateness. It happened when I was doing a little demonstration with the kids. Like there was some humor, but it would be uncomfortable for them to be that loud all the time. It was inappropriate. Like screaming at a pastor in a church is totally inappropriate. I'm saying that now so that you know. Because you're looking at me like, really? I'm not sure about that. No, really, it is. Trust me, it's totally wrong to do. And you can feel it, like, no, don't do that. No, stop. Like, it took a while. I knew Luke was going to help me, but it took a while to get them to where they would really like cut loose and stand up and not hold back and shout out like a trumpet. Right? It took a while because it's inappropriate to do that. And it's convenient. We forget it's also inappropriate to bully someone. But the weight, for some reason, falls on the behavior calling it out. So it isn't the logic of appropriateness that tells us what to do, how to follow Jesus. As I thought about it, I had trouble thinking of a single New Testament hero, a name you would name if you listed off great people in the New Testament. I had trouble thinking of a single one who behaved appropriately. I really struggled. When I thought of the appropriate behavior, I thought of the villains. The guards who arrested Jesus behaved appropriately. The police who beat and tormented him behaved appropriately. That's what they were supposed to do to criminals in the Roman Empire. The government that sentenced him to execution acted within their rights. Perfectly appropriate. He wasn't even the only public execution that day. He had to kind of get in line. There were so many going on. It's like, okay, we'll put you on the list. You're number 2 out of 3. There'll be some more that were there yesterday that haven't died yet. We're kind of waiting. It's very bureaucratic. Just head on out. Very appropriate. When Matthew was collecting taxes and extorting fellow Jews, he was behaving appropriately. When Paul was working for the temple authorities and hunting down Christians, he was behaving appropriately. When Peter said that, I don't think that Gentiles can enter the kingdom of heaven like Jews can, he was behaving appropriately. And all those people that I mentioned, when they turned to follow Jesus, that turn came with inappropriate behavior. Philip and Andrew gave up on their family business, abandoned their dad with his nets, gave up their inheritance to follow Jesus. That's inappropriate. Paul started spreading Christian churches, the ones he'd recently been hired to wipe out. That's inappropriate. Jesus fashioned a whip of cords and whipped money changers out of the temple. That's highly inappropriate. I thought about it. I couldn't think of a single New Testament person we're supposed to be emulating, in theory, who behaved appropriately. Salt, the way it functions in the ancient world and today, it saves food from rotting, and it gives it flavor. The reason there's tons of salt in packaged food is so it doesn't go bad, right? And because salt is delicious. If any of you have had to give it up for medical reasons or eat a lot less of it, you miss it because it's tasty. Light, obviously, illuminates, shines in the dark. The things these things have in common are that neither one functions by itself. Like, take a pinch of salt and put it on your tongue. Is it delicious? Has anyone tried this? It's disgusting. It's not. Take a spoonful of salt and just down it. Yeah, right? Disgusting. Sprinkle it over a steak. It's delicious. Right? Salt needs something else to be meaningful, to be useful. Salt by itself is not helpful. Light is the same way. Lighting an empty room doesn't make any sense. If you grow up like I grew up, even leaving the light on in a room you're not in would get you in trouble. Right? My dad used to say, leave a path of darkness behind you. Which in retrospect is kind of an awesome way to put it. But that one stuck. Because a light in a room where you're not is useless. It's not illuminating anything for anyone. It is a waste of light. Salt that you're just pinching and putting on your tongue is disgusting. It's a waste of salt. Both salt and light need something outside of themselves to work, to be worth something. We are the same. When we are called to speak up, to raise our voices, it's not for our own benefit. It's not to entertain ourselves or to vent. We're called to lift up our voices for other people. That is the point. Standing in a room by yourself, raising your voice is a waste of time. You are called to raise your voice for others. When we look to Isaiah, we can see the categories of people we are called to speak up for. First one on the list from Isaiah is workers. Now, you may not know this, but companies bust unions for a reason. Because workers are easier to manage if they don't have a voice. And that is a way of taking away, one of many ways of taking away a worker's voice. Isaiah talks about those living under injustices. Why are injustices inflicted on them? Sometimes to silence them. People who are yoked, people who are hungry, who are homeless, who have nothing. These are people who are silenced. These are people who are invisible. For example, I've mentioned this before, but did you know there are 50 kids in the Phoenixville High School who are homeless? Did you know that? I didn't until someone told me. Because they're invisible. We haven't heard from them because they don't have a voice. And that's intentional. Because it is inappropriate for them to speak up. People are silenced for a reason. It isn't accidental. It isn't random. And we are also given our voices for a reason. It is no more accidental or random be salt. We are supposed to be light. And so as we go forward in our lives and decide when it's time for us to stand up and say something, especially speaking up for those who cannot. When you do, when you speak up for those who cannot speak, I promise you, it will be appropriate. Be ready for that. It will also be prophetic. God will hear you